Hello, everyone. I'm Courier Francis, past president of AA of Austin and chief diversity officer of Omnicom Advertising Collective, which includes Austin's own GSD&M and Third Ear. Even though I am privileged to have my profession as my passion, what impacts me most is that I'm a curvy, dark-skinned, cisgender, straight woman who Anna so lovingly likes my floral shirt today, who is also the sole caretaker for my 80-year-old mother. But enough about me. I want to share that AAF Austin, named Club of the Year by AAF National, does its best to promote and support innovation in Austin's communication arts by responding to the needs of its members through informational programs. That is why I'm happy to welcome you to the first in a series called Inclusion Solutions, designed to promote inclusion in different areas of the workforce. Today, we are focusing on transforming the culture that allows someone with a disability to not just strive, but thrive in the workplace. I want to thank Mandy David, who will be interpreting for us today. And for those who would like to, you can hit the live transcript button on the bottom of your screen. So let's get started. It is no surprise that an agency whose mantra is, "We are fiercely individual," better known as RAPP, was chosen to create a mobility solutions study called Coloring Outside the Margins. So now I'm going to turn this over to a dear friend of mine who I know is fiercely individual, RAPP's Global Chief Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, as well as her Communications Officer, Devin McLaughlin.
Thank you so much, Kuria. And I am so excited to be here. This show is definitely not about me, so I will take only a minute of your time. But I have the great honor of introducing the keynote speaker for today's session, Kyla Jones. And if you've not yet met or heard of Kyla, I can guarantee that you will very, very soon. Her passion is nothing short of spectacular. Her drive, her intention, her authenticity, and just her absolute willingness to do whatever it takes to do the right thing for underrepresented communities. She is a beacon within the RAPP organization, within Omnicom, and soon to be within the whole country for the work that she's doing. I love her dearly. She's brilliant, she's tenacious, and I really, really am excited for you all to hear what she has to share today. So without further ado, Kyla, we're so glad to have you here.
I am so happy to be here. Hi, everyone. It's just so good to be able to have this space and time to be able to share some insights, some learnings, and definitely more about myself and where I'm looking to go within the next phase of my career journey. There's so much diversity present on the call, and like not just in race or gender, but what you each represent on my career journey thus far. So thank you for being here and sending so many positive vibes like before, during, and after, and really just coming in with an open heart. Today is a dream come true. So I'm feeling the anxiety a little bit. I'm feeling the emotions, but it's very full circle and affirming to the personal legend that I am building while in this lifetime. So I'm ready to talk if you all are ready to listen. This is a lunch and learn. So before we actually get into the content itself, I want to share that I am an African-American, queer, neurodiverse woman, second generation college graduate. I do have a dog, my emotional support in the background, so you may hear her amplifying my voice a little bit. I have golden copper hair today, and I'm wearing a cream black colored blouse. I share these details because I do not want to assume that everyone can see me equally. It's also important that you do not just view me as a marketer today, but rather an individual who is advocating for identities that often go hidden in mass market commercial efforts, like the disability community. I started my journey in accessibility about a year ago, and it was an impromptu career detour that at the time I had no idea where it would take me. I just knew that I had to answer the call because no one else around me was. And that was specifically in client business. So it started with me reviewing marketing personas of one of our auto clients at RAPP and noticing that within all of the personas, you can see or assume the ethnic identity. But what about the accessible needs this persona might have? As marketers in the room on a multi-million-dollar contract, the personas we were given by our clients were influencing us to make an assumption that the consumers that they are looking to target may not directly identify with a disability, which now living through a pandemic, that's quite hard to believe. I decided to ask the hard but necessary question. Are we taking into consideration the disabilities these consumers may identify with or have in the household when it comes to shopping, buying, and owning a car? That silence told me everything I needed to know. And that was really the genesis of my journey. So yes, it started as an ad hoc research project, but it is now influencing top tier clients across industries such as auto, finance, and healthcare. That accessibility and mobility without disability inclusion is a missed opportunity. And we, as marketers, are not doing nearly enough to help generate awareness and take action on behalf of this marginalized community. Everything that we have been taught as marketers has subconsciously influenced us to favor the many over the few. And even with multicultural efforts, we are still not moving the needle on disability inclusion. Maybe from a brand representation point of view, which is 1% of most advertising budgets or sits on the peripheral of like big commercials. But what about within the customer experiences, the customer relationships that we have to build? At RAPP, our strategic craft focuses on building inclusive customer experiences first. CX and UX designs that favor the individual experience over the general population. So this is naturally where I focus my efforts. What are the customer experiences of persons with disabilities within a customer journey, specifically when they are shopping, buying, and building loyalty with the brand? When we set out to do this study, it was important for us to leverage an intersectional approach, an intersectional mindset. Intersectionality is where this industry needs to go. Traditional diversity, it's now a baseline. Intersectionality is an academic term that was coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, #BlackGirlMagic. And it is the future of progressive marketing. So within the study, intersectionality really showed up in two main ways for us. The first was being specific in the type of questions that we designed around the customer journey. Questions like, What are the inequities you experience when you're engaging with the brand? What are the specific systemic injustices you face when shopping and purchasing with a brand? What are the adaptations that you need in your product or your service that exists today or should exist tomorrow? And then lastly, what can a brand do to build an authentic and intentional loyalty strategy with this community? And this is outside of like splashy PR commitments and social media posts. What else needs to be done to not only create social impact, but also social mobility within the disability community? The next focus of the study was building a panel of participants. So I got a chance to host one-on-one sessions to really hear the raw, untold truths, sometimes uncomfortable truths of what it's like shopping for a car, what's the experience they have onboarding to a new brand, and who is really doing a great job in building loyalty with them, which, spoiler alert, no one really is. So this led me to partnering with Omnicom's Open Disability Employee Resource Group. I was connected to a group of passionate individuals, activists, and agency marketers who were open and willing to share their voices with me. When building out the study, I wanted the participants to ID themselves, meaning provide me with the identity dimensions that they wanted to be represented within the study. And this is another layer of intersectionality. Disability, whether physical, mental, sensory, or intellectual, is one identity piece within a whole individual. And to limit these participants to just sharing that one identity of themselves, that wasn't good enough for me. I wanted to know as much as they wanted to share. What makes them truly unique? What makes them truly fiercely individual? And there was no hesitancy in sharing out genders, race, sexual orientation, disability, nationality, hometown, local town, faith, interest, and aspirations. I want you all to meet some of the persons that I spoke to while on this journey and had an opportunity to really develop relationships with these persons. Vaughn Harris, who is a disability activist and speaker. Anna Johannes, Paralympian and supporting marketing efforts at Porta Novelli. And Jared Dutton, a badass copywriter at GSDM and a future TED Talk host. So you all will get a chance to hear from them and their experiences as we continue throughout the keynote. So I took the first step and I started interviewing folks. My first step on the journey was with Vaughn Harris. Vaughn spoke in great detail about the discriminations and injustices consumers face when they go into a retail shop, even like a car dealership. Vaughn shared with me how it's a lot of adaptation and modification before you put yourself out there, because you know the disappointment is coming. Vaughn went on to say that brands haven't adjusted their customer journey for this community because the work is technically done, or there's a level of acceptance that it just won't get better. Vaughn, are you able to share a little bit more about your experiences with this?
Yes, absolutely. I'm here. Hello, everyone. My name is Vaughn Harris. I'm with TBWA Chi-Day, New York. I'm an African-American male. I'm wearing brown glasses, bald head, salt and pepper beard, and I'm ready to talk about this customer journey. As for me, what always shocks me is when you think, I remember buying my first automobile and I was thinking, okay, I was young, I was, eager and excited to get my first car that I actually purchased myself, not my parents. And, I was ready to go to the dealership because that was part of the journey back then. And I said, okay, let's just go in. And so initially, they were looking at me like, well, what are you here for? They really didn't understand the concept of someone in a wheelchair actually driving the vehicle. That was the first thing. So if I would be accompanied by someone else, they would always be talking to that person instead of talking directly to me, even though I was actually the purchaser. Or I would run into a situation where I said, okay, what I'm looking for in a vehicle is a vehicle that I could easily get in and out of, take the chair out of the trunk, take the chair out of the back seat, depending on where I was going to store it, and get around like that. So there was always, a lot of long stares and questionable looks as to whether I was actually able to drive the car or something like that. Now, it wasn't like I was asking for special accommodations with the car and special attachments or anything like that. For me, it was as simple as I just needed to be able to fit my wheelchair in a trunk and put my wheelchair in the back of the car. But you would get this, this feeling like you just didn't belong or you really weren't supposed to be there. And it was disheartening at first, but of course I would push through and just make it part of the experience because I knew I had to get a car. So, but I know so many other people who need more adaptations to their vehicles. And a lot of times they would be stopped before they even got to this part of the process because, these vehicles are never adapted for someone with a disability that required assistance. You then have to go to a third party supplier to get those kinds of things. And a lot of times just knowing that that's ahead of you, it will slow you down, or they would just assume automatically, I wanted a van. Like everyone in a wheelchair had to have a van as opposed to some little cute little sports car that, a 21-year-old guy would want as opposed to a minivan. So it was just in those kinds of things and all the microaggression around it, it would tend to keep you from having the experience and trying to get around it in some way. But, it just takes determination and dedication and courage to kind of push through it sometimes.
And Vaughn, we also spoke about the intersections of you as an African-American male with a disability. Yep. And also purchasing your vehicle in the South.
Yes. And, once again, I'm a Black man trying to buy a car and, you like, can you afford this car? It was always a question around, was I employed? Was I able to make this purchase? Who else was going to cover it? Did I need a co-signer? And all of these kinds of questions that would come up as a young African-American male trying to purchase a car. And I was just like, well, I'm here, I have credit, I'm ready to buy this car. So the experience is one of those things, as a Black man, we always have to shore ourselves up for and be prepared to take it on, put on our armor just to go in there and make these things happen. And once they saw that I was serious about buying the car, then they were all about the sale. But it took a minute to get to that step.
Right. Thank you, Vaughn, for sharing your experience, and your raw honesty and experience led to one of the main insights that I share boldly with clients, which is there is a culture of opting out within this community, that many consumers with disabilities will often stop themselves from shopping or engaging with the brand because of the previous disappointments or discrimination they have encountered. And oftentimes this can be generational, because it's like, why engage with the brand who is clearly communicating that they lack empathy or even awareness of your niche needs? And rather than like rally cry or join another protest, there's a culture of disappointment and forced acceptance. So this is why academic journals call this community the hidden market, even though there's so much research that says this community would be a major economic driver of commercial business and innovation across all industries. So let's get into these big Super Bowl or Olympic commercials that get us all excited to buy, with either a comedic undertone or some inspirational message. If you are a marketer working in these areas, these big tentpole events, you may want to check your script for two things: inspiration porn or performative efforts. The next stop on my journey brought me to Anna Johannes, who shared this insight with me. Companies rarely show the Paralympian driving the car because the cars aren't adapted for us. So it's better to show the performance of the athlete rather than the lack of performance in the car for the individual with disabilities. Anna, when I share this quote with clients, it gets tense. It gets a little uncomfortable. Why do you think that is?
Good question. So hi everyone, my name's Anna Johannes. I'm a white woman with brown hair and I'm wearing a white shirt. It is, like you said, it gets uncomfortable because you have to deal with the fact that it was just a prop, right? It's easy to throw in a Paralympian and show their day-to-day life, maybe not even all of it. I've seen commercials with people with prosthetics who get out of bed with their prosthetics. Like that's like we sleep with our prosthetics on, which by the way, we don't, unless we're really tired, like when you sleep with your makeup on, right? But yeah, it's really about that, right? So I think we've gotten to a point within marketing, brand creation, things like that, where performative is being called out and systemic issues actually have to be addressed. So when a car commercial shows someone who may be missing their legs, they're probably not driving, without the adaptations that Vaughn was talking about. There's things like hand controls, there's plates to make sure that prosthetics don't accidentally press the gas or brake, things like that. But that's not shown in the commercial because it's expected that there's not a lot of us, right? There's not a lot of Vaughns, there's not a lot of Jareds or Annas out there. So it's not worth advertising these products or showing the realities of disability. And I think some companies don't want to address that, but then the companies that do are leapfrogged into this space and accepted by the disabled community so quickly because it addresses who we are and everything that we are, right? It doesn't just say, oh, look, a disabled person, it's an athlete, they did well, it's great. But then showing the product, showing someone with a disability using it, and showing that there are people with disabilities out there that can buy it, right? 15% of the world's population has a disability, and that's a low number, right? That study hasn't been done since the 90s. And so I think that uncomfortableness that you were talking to, Kyla, is that it's the realization, right? And I think that's always the blocker between getting into the disability community and embracing it and holding back is that fear of failure and then fear of the unknown, rather than, like Kyla has done, do the work, understand, talk to people with disabilities. There's so many ways to kind of break through that uncomfortable silence and just go head first, like Degree did with their commercials, right? They didn't just put me trying to put on, deodorant with my left arm with, straps or something like that. They created a product and then marketed it with people with disabilities. And it wasn't apologetic. It wasn't just something on the side. It was like, here we are, we're doing this. It's exciting.
Yeah, I thought the Degree campaign was just groundbreaking and innovative. Like it literally showed that they took the time and intention to listen to the community and then use that to create not even like an adaptation, but like an entire new product suite.
Exactly.
And I agree with you. It is no longer good enough for us as marketers or even consumers to just be inspired in commercial efforts, because this is a very hyper time, I guess you can say. Like, consumers are increasingly becoming aware of performative tropes globally, or even like inconsistent narratives and commitments. So thank you, Anna, for sharing your experience.
Thank you.
There were several other people whom I had the pleasure of speaking to and gaining insight from. Many interviews just continue to amplify the common theme of this hidden market, either always being an afterthought or never a thought. And of course, in a world, in an industry that favors and promotes ableism, as a marketer, are you? How can you challenge? How can we as marketers challenge this mental business as usual framework, not only for ourselves, but also for our clients? The last stop on my journey took me to Jared Dutton, who had so much to share that we actually had 2 interview sessions. The first session, he shared his personal experiences of shopping for a car and other purchasing experiences like travel, hospitality, and healthcare. The second interview session was the most unique for me because I got a chance to meet and speak with Jared's wife, Kim Dutton. Because here's the thing, the diagnosis or the disability may be individual, but it affects the entire household. So noodle on that when you put together targeting efforts for this community. Jared and Kim gave me one of the most groundbreaking insights that actually makes all persons stop and pause for good purpose. They shared with me that people with disabilities are taxed twice, that they have to pay twice the amount, spend twice the amount of time, and put in twice the amount of effort. Jared personally calls this experience the paralysis tax because he shared that it's expensive to be paralyzed. And this is also a preview to his future TED Talk. But Jared, the paralysis tax, it's a unique term that you came up with because we did go back and look at academic journals, research, industry trade papers, and the paralysis tax term itself does not exist. But unfortunately, it's not a unique experience. So can you share a little bit about your experience around that?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kyla. Thank you all for having me, and thank you, Kyla, for including me. I broke my neck about 22 years ago, almost to the day, in a diving accident, and I'm paralyzed from the neck down. Just going forward and expanding on what Kyla was talking about was the fact that whether it's in time, money, or effort, it's more costly just from the time I get out of bed to be here in front of you, dressed, clean, taken care of, fed, all those kind of things has taken 1, 2, 3 or 4 people, not to mention the mouthpiece that you see in front of me, the multiple monitors I have, all the different things that it takes for me to get in front of you is expensive, both in a dollar amount, and then it takes time to research. And oftentimes people don't know. So you have to do this stuff on your own. I find that I'm doing a lot of IT stuff on my own, a lot of software, hardware type things, and all that stuff takes time, effort, and then you put that on top of just the work that you have to do. I've been very fortunate in that GSD&M has been patient and wonderful with me, and we've kind of worked together and grown together, if you will, learning about what is needed and what I need to go forward and is helpful for those things. And that's something that continues. It's an exhausted journey, but it's also incredibly rewarding. Again, to have met people like all the people included today and beyond, it's great. But it's something. It's not anything that's, it's no small thing. But it's one of those things that I do relish the idea of like, what's next and how can we work together and be better going forward. And so when it comes to specifically the automobile industry and stuff that I've learned myself with these talks is that for me, we were really kind of directed into a place and not even a make or model of vehicle. It was like, these are the vans that are converted that you can use. So here's a minivan, here's where you go, and those are the options. So it was really limiting. So it's like, I would like to know if, you know, there are a lot of things I have questions about without having to learn about everything that has to go into an automobile, but just like, what are my options and that type of thing. But I think that's eye-opening for me, even just talking to Kyla through this process.
Thank you, Jared. And that actually reminds me of like another element that we added to the study was that spirit of co-creation. That rather than just share with me the not so good experiences, I also wanted to hear the hopes and ideas for this community and the industries that we all engage with. And now thinking back, I'm so happy I added that in because I needed that light at the end of the tunnel after hearing all of this and, you know, trying to figure out some sort of solutions, like make it make sense. It just didn't. So to have those hopes, to have that bright light where the panelists got a chance to really share with me, like, where do they see this community going and the industries that we get to engage with? Because it was important because this community considers themselves to be hackers of society, that everything they do in order to engage with the world, they have to hack their own reality. But because of this natural forced hacking, this led to so many new ideas, from like content hierarchy to AR, VR experiences. The potential for innovation and social impact is limitless for this community. I actually joked during one session that if we can send billionaires to the moon during a global crisis, then we absolutely have the tools and resources to start building new accessible services and products for this community, my community. But at the bare minimum, begin intentionally advertising and marketing the services that this community needs. At the same time, building authentic, sustainable relationships. So I knew this keynote was going to happen like way before I had my first client meeting, many months before. I knew it was going to happen because my journey also took me to Helena Abbing, who sits on the board of Austin AAF. Helena immediately saw and felt the potential of the study, and she also shared a similar passion as mine, amplifying this. For the last 2 years, I've also been honored by Dallas AAF. So there was already a natural synergy and platform for me to tap into and also step up on. So I'm honored to kick off this series today with our inaugural conversation being accessibility. One of the big statements that we make with the diversity strategy practice at RAPP is DEI&A should not be done in a silo, nor should it be championed by one person, that there's a role for all of us, everyone to play. And not just relying on human resources or your multicultural marketing agencies, but in every department, within every client conversation. So that's the true sustainable marketplace, workplace, and workforce change that we want to continually weave into our culture at RAPP. I was recently asked by a colleague what I thought my superpower was in the industry, and I'm glad they did, because it made me stop and pause. So thank you, Nick Clymer and Mark Miller. I know I'm unable to see you all today, but if you can just take a moment and put your hand to your heart or just feel your heartbeat. And take a deep breath. My superpower is that I see the humanity. I see the heart within every marketing persona that comes across my desk. And I bring forward those emotions of the consumer directly into the room with great precision, I might add. And I'm able to do this because I've never been afraid to color outside of the lines, considering other experiences outside of my own, asking others for better understanding, and bringing that into every space that I enter. And I have some family on the call today, and they will attest that I've been doing this since I was a child. So thank you, family, for giving me that open space early on. So before we close out, I just want to inspire and empower you all to really do the same, to start coloring outside of the lines, color outside of those margins of those client documents. We need to start considering who may be hidden in the margins of the marketplace, but also within ourselves. And the natural place to start is with disability inclusion. Where within your marketing goals, your plans, your teams, your products, your services, your personas, can you be more sensitive and supportive to the needs, the frustrations, and the hopes of this community? As marketers, we have such an incredible opportunity to shift the paradigm of who this industry values and how our clients see their role in impacting social change in the industry. Just imagine if we all did something disruptive on behalf of this community. How many more inclusion solutions would we have in this world? I want to offer everyone a challenge today. In less than a month, we will be honoring Global Accessibility Awareness Day. So, what inclusion solutions will you bring to the table? What inclusion solutions will you strategize and plan for to make an immediate social impact in this community? What new KPIs will you adopt into your workforce? But let us not forget about May 25th. And it's okay if you need to do a quick Google search on the importance of that day. We are all connected. We are all intersecting now more than ever. And I hope you see that. But the difference between now and then is that now we all have the tools and the runway to color outside of the margins. The question now becomes, will you give yourself that open space to do so? And will you encourage your clients to do the same? Thank you.
Wow, that was just amazing. You know, today is Holocaust Remembrance Day. And as Kyla had just mentioned, we have so many unfortunate days where we're constantly having to be reminded how people are being marginalized. And how do we counteract that as a community? We have to make an impact through our work. So thank you for those of you who will take the challenge that Kyla has set forth for us. So with that, I want to shift the conversation to the Special Olympics. I hope that we can bring up the presentation where everyone can bring out their cameras. There's going to be a QR code to learn more about the Special Olympics, which is a global movement focusing on creating a new world of inclusion and community, where every single person is accepted and welcomed, regardless of ability or disability. The mission of Special Olympics is to provide year-round sports training and athletic competition in a variety of Olympic-type sports for children and adults with intellectual disabilities, giving them continuing opportunities to develop physical fitness, demonstrate courage, experience joy, and participate in sharing of gifts, skills, and friendships with their families and other Special Olympians. That is why I'm happy to introduce you to Sebastian Ojeda from the Special Olympics, Texas.
I now have the impossible task of trying to follow up Kyla, but I will absolutely try my best. Thank you everyone for a wonderful study that showcases the importance of inclusion and how we can all work together to build an inclusive and progressive world for everybody. Hello, my name is Sebastian Ojeda. I am a development associate for Special Olympics Texas. And here at Special Olympics Texas, we don't like to consider ourselves just an organization. We like to consider ourselves a movement with a goal of providing year-round sports training and athletic competition in a variety of Olympic sports for children and adults with intellectual disabilities. Our mission includes providing our athletes with opportunities to develop their physical fitness, demonstrate courage to their communities, experience the triumphs and spirits of competition, and to share their gifts and skills with other Special Olympics athletes and families. The athlete of Special Olympics Texas athletes, I think, perfectly encapsulates that mission. And it is, let me win, but if I can't win, let me be brave in the attempt. The experience of attending and participating at our competitions and working to ensure that our athletes are provided with a better quality of life has been one of the biggest pleasures of my life. Our movement is supported by volunteers, and we urge you to volunteer your time and support in any way possible. We have two particular events that we would like to emphasize. First, our annual Summer Games held on May 12th to May 15th in Morgan's Wonderland in San Antonio, Texas. We welcome anyone in the city of San Antonio and the surrounding areas to join us for an exciting 3-day event featuring the best athletes in the state of Texas doing what they do best, competing. Our second upcoming major event is the nationwide Special Olympics USA Games, going to be held in Orlando, Florida. We urge you to donate to any of our Team Texas teams who are competing in a variety of sports to help them fundraise for expenses needed to attend USA Games 2022. For more information on these events or just Special Olympics Texas in general, please visit our website at sotx.org, where you can be redirected to our fundraising pages on GiveButter and help support our athletes with any donations possible. And to support the collaboration between AAF and Special Olympics Texas, please scan the QR code provided on the screen. We are honored and privileged to be a part of this panel, and we hope to have you be a part of our wonderful movement. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you, Sebastian. Special Olympics is impacting over 3 million Special Olympians and their families every day. They truly need your support. So I hope you will take this opportunity to do that. So speaking of support, I want to thank our sponsors, RAPP, who stands up for individuality, creating value from every individual's experience for your brand, fueled by data intelligence at the center of everything that they do, and amplified by creativity. They build and implement modern marketing programs to orchestrate individualized journeys at scale. And also to our other sponsor, my former home and part of the collective, GSD&M, and their disability employee resource group called Enabled, led by GSD&Mers Jared, one of our great panelists today, and Helena Abbing, who is also one of AAF's board members. Their mission is to increase disability awareness through education and advocacy. They know accessibility and inclusion just make the work better. We have seen that today. They want individuals with disabilities to feel welcome with the tools and access to be comfortable and engaged. So that's it for today. I'm Coria Francis, and on behalf of AAF Austin, RAPP, and GSD&M, and the Special Olympics, as well as Mandy Davis for helping us out today, thank you. I want to thank you all for joining the first webinar in the Inclusion Solutions series. Follow us on Eventbrite or go to austinadvent.com, where you will also be able to buy tickets to tomorrow night's event, the 2022 Add to Austin's 32 Under 32 event at Austin Film Society Cinema. Tickets are still available. Remember, you have the power to make this week a great week. Thank you.